Welcome to our first asynchronous lecture, which is on the topic of MLA and APA format. APA stands for American Psychological Association, and MLA stands for Modern Language Association. These are the two most common formats used for essay assignments in college. Depending on your discipline, you may write more papers in MLA or in APA, but it's good to know both. There are other formats as well, like Chicago style and Arabian, but those are specific to certain disciplines and aren't used as often. So in this class, we'll be focusing on APA and MLA. The first essay assignment, the short research essay, will be in MLA format, and the final essay will be in APA. So the sooner you get used to these two formats, the better. Let's look at MLA format first. As mentioned before, MLA stands for Modern Language Association. This association does a lot of things, but one of the main things they do is decide how college students should format their essays. You're probably already familiar with this format from high school English classes. MLA is used for disciplines within the humanities, like English, of course, and also art, philosophy, and history. And even though the format seems set in stone, it's actually not. Every few years or so, the Modern Language Association updates MLA format and makes little changes. So for example, when I was in high school, titles of books or movies were supposed to be underlined in essays. And then when I was in college, all of a sudden I kept having that marked wrong because apparently MLA format was updated, even though I didn't know about it. And now titles are italicized instead of underlined. So it took me a while to get used to the new way of writing titles and change that habit. And I have no idea why they changed it. Maybe they just thought it looked nicer, I don't know. But in your little Siegel handbook, all of the examples are in the most recent version of MLA. So if you follow those examples, you won't have to worry about it. And of course, you can also find guides online to the latest version of MLA. Here's an example of an essay in MLA format. Up in the top left is the header, where you'll put your name, the instructor name, the class, and the date. Up in the top right, you'll put your last name and the page number. Doing that is a little bit tricky since it's outside the margin and you can't just type up there, at least not in Microsoft Word. It's easier to do in Pages. But you can go to Insert, Page Number, and from there you can type your last name, and don't forget to put a space. Also notice the title. So it's not in bold or italic or in a larger font. It's just centered and in the same size as the rest of the essay. For titles, you'll want to capitalize the first letter in every word except prepositions and articles. In MLA format, you'll list your sources in a works cited page at the end of your essay. And again, the works cited title shouldn't be in bold or italics or in a larger font or anything like that, just centered on the page. And the last name and page number will be on the works cited page as well. In case you're wondering, the works cited does count as one of the pages in your page count requirements. Also, the second line of each citation is indented. This makes it easier to see each source as separate from each other. But doing this indent can be kind of difficult in some programs. In Pages, it's really straightforward, and all you need to do is press Tab. But in Word, I think there might be an extra step. I also wanted to mention websites like EasyBib, where you just type in the information from your source and the website generates a citation for you. I don't recommend EasyBib because it makes mistakes all the time. So the best way to go is just to follow an example, like in Little Seagull or an MLA guide online, and do your citations by hand. Works cited is the trickiest part of MLA format because every type of source has a different kind of order of operations to follow in these citations. So, for example, a book won't have the same exact information listed in the same way as an article or an interview or another type of source. So this is usually where most of the mistakes are made. In your Little Seagull handbook on page 119, there's a list of pretty much every type of source you might use and an example of the format to follow for each one. So I recommend bookmarking that page with a sticky note or something for quick reference. Here's the basic format for citations in MLA, both in the main text of your essay and on the works cited page. For in-text citations, mention the author's last name and the page number where the quote is from, if you're using a print source. For electronic sources, there isn't always a page number, and in that case you would just skip the page number and only put the author name in the citation. The citation goes inside parentheses, and in the first example on the first bullet point, only the page number is in the citation because the author's name was mentioned before the quote. So it says, Wordsworth stated that romantic poetry is marked by a, quote, spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings, end quote, citation with the page number. So in that citation, because the author's name was mentioned at the beginning of the sentence, there's no need to put the name again inside the citation. And then in the second example is another way you can do citations with the author's name and the page number inside the parentheses. So in this one, it says, romantic poetry is characterized by the, quote, spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings, end quote. And since with the way the sentence was worded in this one, the author name wasn't mentioned, then the author name is put inside the citation at the end. So it just depends on how your sentences are worded, but in every sentence where you are including a quote from another source, you will want to include the author's last name and the page number if applicable. So in the second bullet point is the basic format for the works cited page. So this is the kind of order of operations of how you'll list the information of a source. So you might find it helpful to write down that little formula there and keep it somewhere for reference of when you're listing your sources. And this is based on a book source, so it wouldn't be exactly the same for every type of source, but it is just the basic information you need. So you'll start with the author's surname or last name and then comma first name. Then you'll put the book title or the website title depending on where you got your source from, and that will be in italics. If there is a subtitle, then you'll put a colon after the main title and then the subtitle. After that, you put the city and the state where the book was published, and then the publisher name, comma, and the year when it was published. So again, that's for a book source, and it might be a little bit different for like a electronic journal article or something, but that's just the basic format and the information that you'll need for your citations. And then on the bottom in the third bullet point, that's what the citation looks like when you plug in all of that information.